Welcome to the reveal of the Garden Path quilt. This is an amazingly simple fat quarter pattern that you are going to love. It could become your new favorite. We all love log cabins because they're simple. They go together easily. They're a fast quilt. But this is even better. It starts with the 5-inch charm square and we go from there. I am so anxious to show this to you. I'm Leah Louise from Inspired Quilting by Leah Louise, and we started this quilt previously, and this is the reveal of the final quilt. It has some wonderful aspects to it that are going to create some design elements in your quilt that you're going to love. And just because I know everyone was going to ask, we do have a pattern here, so you can download that below. And I love this quilt because not only the color, but there are some wonderful design elements. There's a sashing that allows for some great free motion quilting. And don't forget those accent strips that frame each border. There are so many opportunities for you to individualize this quilt. So come on, let's take a look. I want to show you. This quilt has been a delight to make. The fabrics are wonderful. They're bright, they're colorful, they're happy, and it just feels good looking at all these prints and these great contrasting colors and all the designs in here. Of course, I love florals, so that makes a big difference for me. But one thing I wanted to show you, actually there are a few things in particular. With this particular block, this is the smaller size, whereas this is the large. And the smaller size has the sashing, which finishes at about 3.5 inches. This is going to be a great opportunity if you like doing free motion quilting. I'm thinking about just doing maybe some large swirl printing here, but this, would be fun to do a pattern, maybe to do some of the flowers. I'm trying to think of what they call those. They're sort of like just a loopy flower, and you just sort of go around. I think that would look wonderful. I'm calling this the garden path, and it just seems like there's lots of pathways through here. If you've ever seen, like, if you ever go to the botanic gardens, which I love to do, I love the Japanese gardens, and going through the garden path, the English gardens, what do they call the hedge gardens or the herb gardens? And I love the gardens with the paths. And this just makes me think of that as going from one garden, one group of flowers to another. And it's just fun the way it turned out. These prints have some great color. And as we talked about, if you sort of offset these colors and pair them up with a coordinating print, have one big print and something that's a bit more low-key, they go really well together. But I think what really made this quilt stand out is having the accent strip, because that really creates some definition and it frames in each particular block so it can stand out on its own. And let's see, there's some really great prints in here that I want to share. And we've got the large florals. These pinks just look wonderful. And I did use the extra orange fat quarter. In the beginning, I wasn't going to put it in, but I decided to use it in the sashing. I really like that. But just the design of the flowers, the petals are great. And this is a little garden here. And it just all works really well together. There'll be a photo at the end with the entire quilt hung up. It's just right now it's fun to look up close and personal and see just what we have here. Now, some ideas for making this quilt. If you're not ready to jump in something, to something quite so wild and filled with colors and prints, this would be beautiful in just 3 colors. You could do black, white, and an accent, or you can do solids. You can pick one print and then do some other smaller prints or solids. So it's really a versatile pattern, and it's a log cabin, so it's very, very simple. It starts with a 5-inch square, and we build up from there. The other thing that I really like about this is the fact that these lattice strips are not all connected. Because the lattice strip is only on the block itself, after we added the sashing, which is the last step, and the blocks are then pieced together, we don't have any sashing in some areas. So, excuse me, any lattice in some areas. So when you're looking at the quilt from afar, you see these outlined blocks, which look great, but then your eye just sort of tends to wander. And again, that's sort of where the pathway came to mind for me with this particular quilt. So just some fun things to look at. I think I decided what I'm going to put on the backing. This is a bit different. I love the blues, and I just had these pretty batiks, and this one has the daisies and just some swirls. I may, whoops, extra pieces. I may go with these two and just maybe do some narrow strips of this, but I do want to keep with the floral, and I'm going to, I think, go with these blues, these lighter blues, and that'll be really pretty to do for the backing, and then find some kind of, really great fabric to do the binding with. I do want to show you a quick copy of the pattern. The general instructions include just, general sewing, fabric requirements, and this is by the block, whether you're doing large blocks or small blocks. So if you want to do a quilt with just all the large 15-inch blocks, which are amazingly fast, they go together so quickly. You can do that. You can just get the fabric for the large blocks, or you can mix them both, or just go with the small blocks. I mean, these small blocks are beautiful. They're a great size. They cut at 12-inch. They finish at 11.5. So either way, if you prefer not to do the sashing and have the two different sizes. But I also added the cutting guides, because these were cut out of fat quarters, and we don't use the entire fat quarter. We just cut certain strips. And so I thought it would be a bit easier to show in a diagram form just how I made those cuts. And then, of course, we've got the layout of the cut blocks, but then the sewing layout, so that you know which strip and which order, how to put it all together, and then the last with the sashing. Now, a couple ideas. One thing I do want to show you is, maybe if I move this up, I have another photo I think that's going to be better, an image of the quilt. But I want to show you how these accent pieces fit in there. And it's really important, in order to get the same overall design continuing throughout, this sashing corner, that's this one right here, you always want to keep in the same corner. Wherever it's going to be on your quilt, make them all consistent. Now, you can also turn that around, and it's going to change how this little bit of opening is going to expose itself. But the reason that I was concerned about that is I did not want to have two long accent pieces side by side, because that makes it a double width. I want to keep it separate so it creates more of a border, more of a frame around each of these blocks. And with the sashing, there's a fabric allocation, a requirement for the specific sashing if you want to do it all the same size. What I did is I had some extra fat quarters that I included. That's part of what this orange is. And then there's the fans, which, oh, here we go, the fans. This was an extra fabric that I put in too. But alternatively, like I said, you can use all the same fabric. I used extra fat quarters, but you can also use some of the leftover fabric, because we don't use all the fat quarters. So I did incorporate some of the extras that worked well. And I love the greens. The greens worked really well in this quilt. So I'm very happy with how this turned out. It's just so pretty. And all the colors work well together. But let me go ahead and just put up a quick view of the design wall. There's a couple things I want to show you there. And then I'll show you the final quilt, and we are ready to go. I hope you're all ready to make your quilt and you have your fabric picked out. And oh, this is exciting. I can't wait to share the rest of this with you. Here's a few of the blocks up on the design wall. And what I want to show you specifically are the two blocks, the pink on top and the yellow. In the pink, notice how that lower corner of the accent strips is in the opposite corner from all the others. And it brings those two seams together, the wide sashing and the focal fabric, and it's just a little too much going on at one time. There's no separation there, and I think there should. So by turning that block around and getting that lattice in the right corner, you're going to create a frame around all your blocks, and it just sort of breaks it up, because orange into pink and those particular prints and the colors, they don't what do I want to say? They don't really blend well next to each other, but you put that little accent in there, it separates it, it frames it, and it works fine. Now with the yellow, the chrysanthemums, and down there you notice that there is the lattice crosshatch. And you notice on the yellow block, the crosshatch pattern with all the different colors is kind of a dominant background. So if you use that as your sashing on the small block, it's probably going to be really repetitive. You're going to see it in the block as well as around the block, and that might be a bit too much. Whereas on the green one, you'll notice that there is a green with a turquoise polka dot over there on the other side, but yet the green border that goes around that block has a different print. So just kind of place your pieces accordingly. Look at them, stand back, see what works best, what you like best, and play with it a little bit. And sometimes you can find something unexpectedly that you might not have thought about to begin with. Let's do one more real quick. And here's the finished quilt. She came out so pretty. I love it. And the accent strips, I think, work really well. And you know what I just noticed? If you look at how this is all placed, they're 90-degree angles. They look like L's for my name. That makes me happy. And that was totally unintentional, but I just thought that was a funny thing to see. So here we are. We've got a great quilt. You can download the pattern right below and make your own. And I would love to see what you make. So please make sure you email me or get a copy to me on someplace out there in the social media. I know you'll find me. My links are all down below too. So have a great time making this quilt. I hope you enjoyed it. It is wonderful fun. It is a quick and fast project. 15-inch blocks are great to quilt with. They go together quickly. So let's go ahead and you get started quilting, and I'll see you on the next time around. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. It's been my pleasure.